When 32-year-old Oscar winner Daniel Cross signed on to Clint Eastwood's film, he brought a list. 18 demands. Special accommodations, private requirements, artistic necessities that the production would need to provide or he wouldn't perform. Most directors would have fired him on the spot. Clint Eastwood read the list, looked at Daniel, and said one word: approved. Daniel smiled. He'd gotten everything he wanted, or so he thought. What Daniel didn't know was that Clint had just agreed to pay him $2 million to commit career suicide. And by the time Daniel realized what happened, the film was already in theaters and his reputation was destroyed forever. It was February 2006, and Daniel Cross was sitting in his agent's office in Beverly Hills holding an offer that would change his life. Or so he thought. The offer was from Clint Eastwood, a supporting role in his next film, a war drama called Letters from Iwo Jima. The role was significant, not huge, but enough to showcase Daniel's talents alongside established actors. The money was good, $2 million for approximately 6 weeks of work. Daniel was 32 years old and riding the highest wave of his career. 4 months earlier, he'd won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role in an independent drama about addiction. The performance had been transformative, literally. Daniel had lost 35 pounds, lived in a halfway house for 2 months, and refused to break character during the entire shoot. Critics called it devastatingly authentic. His acceptance speech had been emotional, passionate, filled with gratitude and artistic philosophy about the depths an actor must go to find truth. Now, every major director in Hollywood wanted to work with him, but working with Clint Eastwood was different. Clint was a legend, an icon, 4-time Oscar winner, 50 years in the industry, the kind of director whose films became part of cinema history. "This is huge," Daniel's agent said. "Clint doesn't typically work with method actors. He likes efficient, professional sets. But he specifically requested you after seeing your Oscar performance." Daniel smiled. Of course Clint wanted him. Daniel was the best young actor of his generation. He brought intensity, authenticity, commitment that other actors couldn't match. "I'll do it," Daniel said, "but I have requirements." His agent's smile faltered. "Requirements? I'm not some television actor who just shows up and hits marks," Daniel said, echoing words he'd used in a dozen interviews since winning the Oscar. "I need the right environment to access my craft, specific conditions that allow me to maintain the psychological space my process requires." "Daniel," his agent said carefully, "this is Clint Eastwood. His sets are known for being no-nonsense, professional, efficient. I don't think—" "Then make him understand," Daniel interrupted. "I'll send you my list of requirements. Present them with the contract. If he wants me, these are non-negotiable." 2 days later, Daniel's agent sent Clint's production team a document. 18 specific demands. Private trailer, twice the size of what other supporting actors received. Personal chef for specialized diet requirements. Custom shooting schedule that accommodated morning meditation. Private stunt coordinator. Approval rights on costume choices. Personal dialogue coach on set at all times. Closed set during emotional scenes. No visitors during shooting days. Dedicated personal assistant beyond standard production support. Custom workout equipment. Specific lighting requirements. Multiple takes guaranteed for every scene. Private screening of dailies. Dedicated hair and makeup team not shared with other actors, separate transportation, private rehearsal space, specialized sound mixing, no photography between takes. The list went on, each demand more elaborate than the last, each one signaling that Daniel Cross considered himself not just an actor, but the star, despite being hired for a supporting role. The producer who received this list was incredulous. "He wants what?" Clint, this kid is 32 years old. One Oscar. He's making demands like he's Marlon Brando in 1972. Clint read through the list carefully. His face revealed nothing. The crew waited, expecting him to pick up the phone and tell Daniel's agent the deal was off. Instead, Clint looked up and said one word: approved. Clint, this will cost us. I said approved, Clint repeated, his voice that quiet rasp that carried absolute authority. Give him everything on this list, every single thing. May I ask why? Clint smiled slightly, that rare smile that people who worked with him knew meant he was thinking several moves ahead. Because I want to see something, and it's worth the investment. The producer didn't understand, but he knew better than to question Clint Eastwood's decisions. The demands were approved. Daniel's agent called him with the good news. They agreed to everything? Daniel asked, trying not to sound surprised. Everything. Clint personally approved every item on your list. Daniel felt vindicated. This proved his worth. Clint Eastwood, a legend, understood that great art required accommodation, that real method acting couldn't be constrained by typical production schedules or standard set protocol. When do we start? Daniel asked. Principal photography begins March 15th. You're scheduled for 30 shooting days over 6 weeks. Production began on schedule. Daniel arrived on set with his 18 requirements fully implemented. His massive trailer was positioned in the best location. His personal chef prepared specialized meals. His meditation schedule was honored with late call times. His private stunt coordinator stood ready. His dedicated hair and makeup team worked exclusively for him. Everything exactly as demanded. The other actors noticed immediately. They were sharing trailers, eating standard catering, following normal production schedules, arriving at 6 in the morning while Daniel sauntered in at 8 after his meditation. And here was Daniel Cross with accommodations that exceeded what even Clint himself had. But Clint said nothing. He directed Daniel with the same quiet efficiency he brought to all actors. Never commented on the special treatment. Never showed irritation when Daniel's meditation schedule delayed setups. Never questioned when Daniel insisted on closed sets, forcing other actors and crew to leave so he could access his emotional truth privately. Daniel interpreted this as respect. Clint understood that Daniel's process was special, that his Oscar-winning technique required these conditions. Daniel felt seen, valued, understood. What Daniel didn't realize was that Clint was documenting everything. Every delay caused by Daniel's requirements, every dollar spent on special accommodations, every moment when other actors had to wait because Daniel was in his trailer preparing. The cinematographer noticed Clint shooting far more coverage on Daniel's scenes than typical. Multiple angles, long takes, close-ups, medium shots, wide shots, reverse angles, hours of footage for scenes that would typically require half the time. Why so much coverage on Cross? The cinematographer asked during a break. Options, Clint said simply. I like to have options in editing. 30 days of shooting. Daniel delivered his performance with the intensity he was known for. Raw, emotional, deeply method. He stayed in character between takes. He insisted on doing scenes 10, 12, sometimes 15 times until he felt he'd accessed the correct emotional truth. His dedicated dialogue coach stood by whispering affirmations. His personal chef prepared specific meals between takes to maintain his energy. His private stunt coordinator ensured every physical moment was performed to Daniel's exact specifications. Clint accommodated all of it, never rushed him, never showed impatience. Just kept the cameras rolling, capturing everything. When Daniel's shooting wrapped, he felt triumphant. He'd given a performance that would surely earn him another Oscar nomination. He'd worked with Clint Eastwood, a legend who'd respected his process enough to accommodate his needs. He'd proven that method acting, real method acting, required special conditions and was worth the investment. "That was incredible," Daniel told Clint on his last day. "Thank you for understanding what I need as an artist." "You're welcome," Clint said, that slight smile appearing again. "I learned a lot from this experience." Daniel flew back to Los Angeles feeling satisfied. Another great performance. Another step toward becoming the greatest actor of his generation. He told his agent the shoot had gone perfectly. Clint had given him everything he needed. The performance was Oscar caliber. Post-production began. The editing room was where Clint Eastwood truly directed his films. He'd shot the footage. Now came the real work, shaping it into a story. Clint's editor pulled up all the footage featuring Daniel Cross. 47 hours of material, beautiful shots, powerful performances, exactly what they'd captured during those 30 days. "How do you want to approach Cross's scenes?" the editor asked. Clint leaned back in his chair, studying the footage on the monitors. "Let's start with the essential story beats. What do we absolutely need from his character to serve the narrative?" They worked through the film's structure. Letters from Iwo Jima was a complex war drama told from the Japanese perspective. Daniel's character was an American soldier appearing in flashback sequences, providing context for the Japanese soldiers' understanding of their enemy. "His character serves a specific narrative function," Clint said. "Let's use exactly what we need for that function. Nothing more." Over the next 6 weeks, Clint and his editor crafted the film with surgical precision. Daniel's 47 hours of footage was carefully reviewed, every take analyzed, every moment considered, and then systematically reduced. Scene after scene that Daniel had spent days perfecting was trimmed, shortened, or cut entirely. The long emotional monologue that took 12 takes and an entire afternoon to capture, cut to a single reaction shot. The complex character moment that required a closed set and 2 hours of preparation, replaced with a simple line of dialogue from another character describing what happened. Clint kept only what served the story, and the story, as it turned out, didn't need much of Daniel Cross. The final cut of Letters from Iwo Jima was submitted to Warner Brothers in September 2006. The film was powerful, moving, critically acclaimed from the first test screenings. The studio scheduled a December release date, positioning it for awards season. Daniel Cross received an invitation to the premiere in Los Angeles, December 9th, 2006. He was excited. This would be his first time seeing the finished film. He'd requested early screenings of his footage during production, but had been told that Clint didn't show actors their scenes until the final cut. Daniel arrived at the premiere wearing a custom suit, ready to bask in acclaim for another transformative performance. The industry would see his range, his dedication, his artistry. He'd mentally prepared his response for when critics asked about working with Clint Eastwood. The lights dimmed, the film began. Daniel watched intently, waiting for his scene. So at the 23-minute mark, his character appeared, a brief flashback. 35 seconds of Daniel on screen. Powerful, yes, but brief. Daniel shifted in his seat. That wasn't his main scene. His character appeared throughout the film in flashback. More scenes were coming. At the 47-minute mark, another flashback. Daniel on screen, 22 seconds. At 1 hour and 18 minutes, another scene, 40 seconds. Daniel felt his chest tightening. Where were his major scenes, the long emotional moments he'd spent days perfecting, the complex performance he'd given? At 1 hour and 52 minutes, his final appearance, 45 seconds. When the credits rolled 2 hours and 21 minutes later, Daniel Cross had appeared in Letters from Iwo Jima for a total of 2 minutes and 17 seconds. He sat frozen in his seat as the audience applauded, as critics around him whispered about the film's brilliance, as Clint Eastwood stood for a standing ovation. 2 minutes and 17 seconds, 30 days of shooting, 47 hours of footage, 18 special requirements accommodated, $2 million paid, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Daniel's hands were trembling. He felt physically ill. Around him, industry people were standing, applauding, celebrating Clint's masterpiece, and Daniel had barely been in it. The after-party was torture. Daniel stood in the corner watching colleagues congratulate Clint, watching other actors from the film receive praise for their performances. Nobody mentioned Daniel. How could they? Most people probably didn't even remember seeing him. Finally, he found Clint near the bar. "We need to talk," Daniel said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "About what?" Clint asked calmly, sipping whiskey. "My performance. My scenes. I was on screen for barely 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 17 seconds, Clint corrected. I timed it. "This is insane. I shot for 30 days. We did dozens of takes, hours of footage, and I used exactly what the story needed," Clint said, his voice quiet but carrying that edge Daniel was hearing for the first time. "Your character serves a specific narrative function. I shot comprehensive coverage to give myself options in editing. Then I chose the moments that best served the story. But my performance, the emotional depth, the complexity I brought, was fine," Clint interrupted. "Your acting was perfectly adequate for what was needed. 2 minutes, 17 seconds of a supporting character providing context for the main narrative. That's the role you were hired to play." "I was led to believe. You led yourself to believe," Clint corrected. "You read supporting role in your contract and decided it meant something else. You made 18 demands for special treatment and assumed that meant you were the star. Nobody told you that. You told yourself that." Daniel felt his face flushing. "You did this on purpose. You accommodated all my requirements just to—" "I accommodated your requirements because you made them non-negotiable," Clint said. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. I shot all your scenes with the time and attention your process required. I paid you $2 million. And then I edited the film to tell the story I wanted to tell, using exactly as much of your performance as served that story. This will destroy my reputation. Everyone will see that I'm barely in this film. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent 30 days and considerable production resources demanding special treatment for a supporting role," Clint said, his voice still that deadly quiet rasp. "Maybe you should have focused on being professional instead of acting like you were the star when you weren't." Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but Clint continued. "Daniel, here's something you need to learn. Winning an Oscar doesn't make you special. It makes you lucky for 1 year. Maintaining a career requires professionalism, respect for your collaborators, and understanding your role in the larger story. You had none of those things on my set." Clint paused, letting that sink in. "You had demands. 18 of them. So I gave you what you demanded. Private trailer, personal chef, late call times, closed sets, everything. And while you were meditating in your trailer and making everyone wait, I was documenting exactly what that cost in time, money, and crew morale. I gave you every take you wanted, shot every angle, captured every moment of your process. And then," Clint continued, "I went into the editing room and made the film I wanted to make, using exactly as much of you as the story required, which turned out to be 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Daniel felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. This was a lesson. "This was a $2 million education," Clint said, "and here's hoping you learned something from it." Clint finished his whiskey and walked away, leaving Daniel standing alone to... The reviews for Letters from Iwo Jima were extraordinary. The film was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. It won the Oscar for Best Sound Editing. Critics praised the performances, the direction, the emotional power of the story. Daniel Cross was not mentioned in a single review. His performance, while technically in the film, was too brief to warrant critical attention. In the few articles that listed the cast, his name appeared well down the list with the notation "brief appearance." But the industry noticed the real story. Within days, word spread through Hollywood about what had happened. The story was too good not to share. Oscar winner makes 18 demands. Clint accommodates everything. Shoots for 30 days. Actor appears for 2 minutes in the final film. The story spread through agencies, production companies, studios. Agents talked over lunch. Producers compared notes. Directors shared it as a cautionary tale about ego and professionalism. When Daniel's agent began pitching him for new roles, the response was noticeably cooler than before. "We're looking for someone more collaborative. We need actors who understand ensemble work. We heard about the Clint situation." Daniel tried to explain. He did interviews claiming there had been a misunderstanding, that the edit didn't reflect his full performance, that creative differences sometimes happen. But the industry had made up its mind. Daniel Cross was talented but difficult. He made unreasonable demands. He didn't understand his place in the collaborative process. Within 6 months, the offers that had flooded in after his Oscar win had dried up. Projects that would have automatically hired him went to other actors. His reputation had shifted from brilliant method actor to difficult talent who doesn't understand how film sets work. A year later, Daniel was doing supporting work in television, roles far below what he'd been offered before the Clint situation. His agent tried to rebuild his image, but the damage was done. Hollywood has a long memory for actors who cause problems. 2 years after the premiere, a young director who'd worked as an assistant director on Letters from Iwo Jima was asked in an interview what he'd learned from Clint Eastwood. "Efficiency," the director said, "professionalism, and one other thing. Clint told me once, if an actor makes demands, accommodate them. Give them exactly what they ask for. Then in the editing room, give the audience exactly what the story needs. Sometimes those things align, sometimes they don't, but the story always comes first." The interviewer asked if that was about Daniel Cross. "Clint never said his name," the director replied, "but everyone who was there learned the same lesson Daniel did. Talent matters, but professionalism matters more, and no amount of method acting makes you bigger than the story being told." Daniel Cross continued acting, but never regained the momentum he'd had after his Oscar win. He worked steadily in smaller roles, television guest spots, the occasional independent film. He'd been given a chance to work with a legend and had blown it by confusing confidence with arrogance. Clint Eastwood went on to make more acclaimed films. He won more awards. He maintained his reputation as one of the most professional, efficient, and respected directors in Hollywood. And the story of Daniel Cross became part of his legend. Not because Clint told it, he never did, but because everyone who witnessed it understood they'd seen a masterclass in how to handle ego on a film set. Give them what they demand. Film everything. Then tell the story that needs to be told. 2 minutes, 17 seconds, 2 million, the most expensive lesson Daniel Cross ever learned. If this story of ego, professionalism, and perfectly calculated consequences moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that talent doesn't excuse arrogance, and real artistry includes respecting the collaborative process. Have you ever seen someone confuse confidence with entitlement? Share your story in the comments.